All right, so for position building, the whole thesis is that you're building a position, and in order to do that, I feel like there's like a process, and um, my specific strategy is different from anyone else's. So I follow this guy. His name is Market Structure Trader, and his name is specifically Lee Sampson. And he was building a bot and backtesting different results, and he was trying to figure out trailing stop or take profit, and just the equity curve, and maximizing that. And his findings were that if he had a 2-to-1 risk to reward, that he will get back tests of profit to where it'll be slow and steady. There won't be any big home runs in there, massive gains, but at the same time, the losses were very small. So the equity curve would be kind of like a pension plan, like a nice and steady upwards and to the right. But then when it came to the one where it was like the swings and home run, like a 5-to-1 risk to reward ratio, there would be some home runs in there. And he was trying to figure out like what's the best way, and I told him to do a split position. You do both, and that's kind of just how I approach things. And you do 1/3 swing and 2/3 take profit, which is a scalp. It could be a 2-to-1, and then the 1/3 would be a 5-to-1. And that's kind of how I like to approach uh, my positions. And on top of that, I like to level up my positions too in terms of risk. So, example, but first you need to have a risk management calculator. You need to know how many micros specifically. If you were to do a stop loss in of 15 ticks, depending on the broker you're using, if it's pips or whatever, you need to know specifically like what is the risk of your stop loss. So if my stop loss is 15 ticks, and I'm doing a micro, which is $1.25 per tick move, the total loss per trade in 15 ticks for one micro would be 18.75 ticks. So for 1%, I could do 4 micros with a 15 tick stop loss to equal 1% loss. And that's one trade. So yeah, that's kind of something you need to know, because it really affects your drawdown for the day in terms of risk management. So what I've come to learn to love is to do one to do a 30, a really wide stop loss, and then do one contract, so half of 1%. So I like to do half of 1%, so 0.5% swing entry with a 30 tick stop loss, and 30 tick auto break even pass entry. It's a really slow moving to break even kind of deal. And so that's the start of the premise, is just the risk management. Whenever I begin building a position, I first begin with the analysis, and I like to go in the direction of a H4 H1 breaker that's recent and on the retest, and I like to form an entry, and the entry rules will either be I want to get in with a triple. That's not how you spell triple. Triple stack, delta imbalance. Um, in either like a breakout or so on the polarity ATI it's called trend or regression. Either or. I just set up two bots. I'm looking to get, whenever I get an entry signal on a pullback, I want to get in, and I just put on the bot for trend and regression. Whatever gets me in first, that's the one. And then if I happen to get another one and it happens the trend bot gets me in second, then that's fine with me. And I just let it stick. I let it ride. But the goal is then to, once those trades to get in, it's really slow because it's a 30 tick take auto break even. So it has to move pretty far before those move to break even. And then the whole idea with this first entry, it's a half of 1%, and it's a really wide stop loss, and it's a really long time before auto breaks even, is kind of like testing the waters to see and validate your thesis if your entry is valid and it the green light to build a position. Pretty much once you get this entry for the 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 one the wide stop loss, the slow auto break even. Once you get that in, that's the runner. That's the runner, and then what comes next would be more. You want so what I do next is I do it again, but instead of so let's say the first one I got it on a regression entry. So this is the most preferable one. Is the first one's the regression entry. So like we'll put this as like the number one. The first entry is the regression entry. Second entry would be the trend entry, and this is more of like a breakout entry, and that's pretty much the second position. And I like this position to be half of a 0.5, half of 1% as well. Swing entry with the same setups with 30 tick stop loss and up 30 tick auto break even. So that way, if there was a breakout and it came back to retest, you would be fine. And this flows really well with either not knowing what step you're in. If you're on a small market structure break, usually there's a retest and then a resumption up, and in those times you don't know if you got a regression entry before the breakout or the break, a market structure break, or on the retest of the market structure break. So for the most part, I like to have it follow this order of like I get a regression entry, even though I turn them both settings on, but on two separate bots, I try to set a regression entry and then a trend entry, and the trend entry is the breakout, and I want it to happen in the sequence of regression entry comes first, and then trend entry comes second. That way we can get an idea when the entry sticks and the trade sticks, just over time, if the thesis is valid, and then if it's safe to begin scaling in. Because the idea is if those two positions survive, then it can start trending, because technically we broke out in a breakout way, and if it's a trend day, the trades will naturally start sticking on the scalps or whatever. So the idea would be is we would have two runners at this point, and we would begin getting ready for the scalps. And I either like to do 1/3, 2/3, depending on what kind of entries I get. But I like to do 1/3, 2/3, and then as far as like a runner and then a scalp would be the 2/3, and then or to do 50-50, where 50% of the position is dedicated to a swing, 5 to 1, 10 to 1, and then the other half is dedicated to a scalp. But if I get a second entry, which is the breakout, I try to see if that will stick as well, and with a really slow break even and really wide stop loss. So the third entry we after these stick and they hit auto break even, we kind of have a little more information and proof of our thesis that the direction of the day that we're picking is more successful, and it's time to begin building a position with more sizing and going for some 2-to-1 scalps. So with the 2-to-1 scalps, I like to do, I've seen anywhere, so 2-to-1 scalps, we'll just put the 2-to-1 scalps. I've seen anywhere from, this is what I do 15 stop, tick stop, and then 30 take profit. And then I've seen other people do 16 tick stop and 32 take profit. Like people get theories of just either people following a cookie cutter formula or just like expanding things, but I think eventually you can level up to like a 16 or an 18, and then just expand the ratio and also your the stop loss depending on the volatility. But the third step is like getting scalps in, and the method I like to do this. Let's see. We'll put this under ticks, and then we'll do the method on B. And I typically like to get the scalps in on an entry of regression mode on the Polarity ATI. And I think Polarity ATI bot on NinjaTrader or strategy is I don't know, I believe it's a copy of other bots, and you could go to the Trader Devils indicators and use their bot. They also have a regression and trend setting. This is just what I bought and what I'm using to get in with stacked imbalances. And I use the default settings 75 and 35, 0.35 for, and then I think I just pretty much follow the default settings. But I like the regression entry, especially for scalps, because it really helps with the entry, especially whenever I get these pullback signals. But this is typically the progression that I follow, and then whenever the scalp starts sticking and I start winning scalps, I keep on doing it based upon the signals I get. And once we find out we're in a trend day, and the scalps are sticking, the trend is obvious, then I have this scale I walk through, and it's in my trade day trading plan overview for the day. So I open this up and I get this scale, and typically this is just a risk management scale. So then I follow the successes of scalps with my scale. This is the scale. So this is to help me know when to stop trading for the day and when I can keep going. So I just mark out where I'm at. So if I get one successful scalp on a 2-to-1, I know just keep track of it. And my goal is to, I don't know, get to like 3 or 4, because then I can calculate the amount of profit I've had in scalps. So if I had a 2 contract scalp, and then each one is $1.25, so I just do $1.25 times 30 times 2 for 2 micros, and it puts me at $75 to profit. So then now, after so many, like times 2 wins or 3 wins, I can calculate pretty much how much profit. So 75 I could put here, and then 75 times 2. Shoot, there's a 150. Okay, and so on, and then times 3, 75 times 3, 225. So the reason for this is so I can, if I wanted to up my risk, I could. It's kind of like whenever you play some kind of deck building game, you could like trade in your gold for more points. I don't know, like I think Raccoon Tycoon. This is somewhat of a parallel, but you could trade in, I don't know, your points for like or your gold for some points, or like for a different card, and you're just leveraging, you're just trading whatever you had to make more, to leverage more of either the points or the gold, or more to obtain more commodities. So this is the same thing. The whole idea is to level up from a micro to a mini, and that's a 10x leverage compared to a micro. Micro is 1/10, and if I do 2 micros, it's still 2/10 of one mini, and so the goal is, if I got a mini, we could calculate. Let's see, 1.25 times 10. So it's $12.50 per tick, and then you multiply that by 15 for the stop loss. It's 187. So roughly by 3 successful scalps, I can attempt, or even 2, I can attempt to try to get a runner that's a mini. So once I get like 2, I'll mark it like I have 2 successful scalps. I'm like, oh, I can try to get a mini runner. Because if I were to lose, it would be as if I didn't lose on the day at all. Because a loss on a mini would be 187. So we can put an asterisk here, is just the beginning of that, to where it's safe to begin getting a mini, and just kind of mark that out. Like, that's something I haven't done yet. We'll just kind of replace that here. And we kind of want to find the most recent one. So let's go ahead and open up the most recent one. So this is 21, so that we can go to the 22 and just start replacing. And then open, I think 23 is the end of the week, if we can find it. Master Trade Journal. And then we'll fix it here. Okay. So that's kind of just how I play it. I play it to where, the game's already levered, and the whole idea is you're trying to get it to where you can trade your profits for a more levered instrument, for a quick scalp, or even a runner, and then getting the runner to break even, and the runner. So step 5, follow the successes of my scalps with my scale, And with that, so we'll just Control X here, and then do that. Follow the successes with scalps with my scale, and then I try to get at least 1-for-1 scalp profit for risk for 15 tick stop risk for a mini, because it's 10x levered. So if I were to get a mini, then and I get a runner that's a mini, then there's a huge potential for a lot of profit if it's a trend day. And the goal is to get that mini to break even. And once the mini's at break even, then I could go for another one. And that's the cool thing about it. I can go for another one, and the next one I could decide to either have it as a scalp, or I can go for a runner. And if I go for a scalp, it's a hefty profit. So it would be I think 1.25 times 10. I think it's 12.5, and then times 30 is the take profit. It would be 375. So 375 is basically equal to 2 minis for attempting for room for. So if I were to be successful with that mini scalp, I can try to get more mini scalps or runners. I could just keep on attempting to start collecting minis. So that's kind of how I build positions. And I could, if it was choppy or uncertain, I can stick with the micros. And the micros are 1/10 the risk. And I'll just keep on stacking micro scalps, keep the runners in, and if it's still uncertain. But if it's still certain that we could go a lot farther and we can push for farther targets, I could start just collecting more micro. But I felt a little uncertain. I could still collect more micro runners, or I could do 1 micro runner, 2 micro scalps, and I could just shoot for both at the same time. And even because the confidence is there, things are sticking, and I have profit that I could use as collateral for losses, and to really absorb losses. And I could just increase the risk by, instead of tiptoeing in, because that's what the beginning is all about. It's about tiptoeing in, kind of validating the bias of the day. And if things were to go bad, I could just liquidate the runners, and it would just be like break even or a wash. But for the most part, once it gets more proven, there's profit, you could just take on more risk by instead of tiptoeing, now both feet for 1%, and that would be two micros for a scalp, and then 1 micro for a swing long. And with the same strategy, like the scalp would be a 15 tick stop loss, and then with a 30 tick take profit, and then the swing long would be the 30 what's it called, stop loss, and 30 tick auto break even, and you would just really take it to its target. But I like the 1/3, 2/3, and then I like the ability to upgrade my leverage in exchange with the profits that I made with the micros. And that enables me to scale big into a position, and once you get the minis in, it's kind of like game over. Like that, once the minis stick, they'll go to auto break even. Like, it's a whole new game, because now you're able to 10x your profits out of nowhere, because you're able to move it to break even. And I just keep on going until I have a loss on the minis. on the scalp, and I try again. It's basically like a huge bank for just multiple attempts until the training day is over, which is pretty much 10:30 a.m. for me. But that's my method for position building. My goal is to just keep on improving this process. It's not the thing to do, but it's something that I've found that works for me.